Hello everyone and welcome to the Creative Noahland podcast. On this episode, we're lucky to be joined by award-winning photographer, visual storyteller and artist Emma Brown. Emma's work sits at this kind of intersection of art, humanity and process. Emma creates stunning images using a technique called wet plate photography. And since finding it, she has completely immersed herself in this historic process that was developed in the 1850s. A raw, unforgiving, and beautifully imperfect form of photography that she describes as a dark mistress, full of magic and ritual, where you have to just kind of surrender to the process. And I was lucky enough to have my portrait taken by Emma before we did the podcast. And it really was a magical experience. She's the recipient of the Juliet Margaret Cameron Award, among many others, and her work has been featured in recognised publications like Focus Quarterly, and she's been selected for multiple exhibitions, including the Royal Academy Summer Show. But beyond the accolades, Emma's work spans portraiture and music, as well as long-term collaboration projects with NGOs and charities, including working with the Sahrawi refugee community in both Algeria and here in the UK. It's her dedication to ethical storytelling that really defines Emma's legacy as a photographer. In this episode, we discuss Emma's creative journey. We explore everything from her route into photography, the realities of working in the industry, and we go into detail about the work that she does for unrepresented communities, where she uses her passion for photography to help others tell their stories through images. We go into detail about Emma learning wet plate photography and falling in love with its magic, and why it is just so important to surrender, slow down, and be truly present with the process. We talk about the vulnerability of being an artist, putting our heads above the parapet and saying, "This is what I do." And we also discuss why we should all consider taking the path, because the unconventional routes often lead to the most incredible journeys. Be sure to check out the links to Emma's website and social media, where you can see more of her amazing work while you're listening to the podcast, of course. But enough of me. Let's get into it. Emma, I have just been lucky enough to experience having my portrait taken, which is quite weird for a photographer, by another photographer, but in the most wonderful, magical way. We've just done a couple of portraits of me using wet plate photography, which, should we just say, is your knee?
Yeah, I think that's right. That's correct.
Because not only, you're an award-winning photographer, you've exhibited, you've been featured in magazines all over, you've got a commercial background, but this wet plate is where you found a real love, isn't it?
Yeah, it feels like home.
Why does it feel like home?
I think it's firstly a full circle back to how I fell in love with photography in the darkroom, seeing the image come up on the plate. Mm-hmm. It's just as magical as it was when I first learned photography when I was about 14 and seeing my first image appear on the paper in the darkroom. I know lots of photographers have had that experience, but not only is it a full circle moment, it's a very slow, meditative process. And for me, that is what feels really special about it. In today's fast-paced world, I've taken a step away from that, and I'm working with a process where the exposures are really long, the process is very exacting, and that you need to be focused, but also you need to surrender to the process, because as much as you think you're in control, it can come back and bite you when you don't pay enough attention. So I really enjoy the focus, the meditative aspect, and the ritual of making a photograph.
And it is a ritual, isn't it? We took so much pleasure in just waiting for the pour and waiting for the image to expose. Like you say, going back to those early days of photography, because our route into photography is quite similar. Should we do the classic? Should we just go backwards?
Let's do it.
Where does the love of photography come from for you, Emma?
I think my dad was always into photography. And I remember on our holidays, he'd have his Minolta SLR camera and would be shooting like 1 or 2 precious rolls of film on every holiday. And I was always intrigued by it. And I loved seeing the photographs when they came back. And I asked if I could use the camera. I first used the camera when I was probably about 7. We were on a family holiday in France. And I took a picture of Mum and Dad on the balcony of our holiday apartment. That's the first, like, proper picture
Was
I've ever...
that quite precious with the... Because, I mean, as you say, back in those days, it cost quite a lot of money to expose films. You only had a limited number on a roll. So did you only get the one shot?
I did get one shot. And luckily, when it came back, I was very pleased with it.
And clearly, it set the wheels in motion for
it did.
A future career. But you really got the bug, didn't you? So much so that you got your own camera with black and white printing, and this is the full circle, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. So when I was younger, because I was so into photography and into the, taking pictures, Mum and Dad bought me a really basic camera. I had a 110 camera. I think a lot of people our age probably would have started with one of those.
So,
yeah. And my love of photography just progressed from there. I just took a lot of pictures, and then my dad had studied photography, or he did some black and white printing and shot black and white stuff when he was at his youth club. And so he helped me set up a darkroom at home, and he taught me how to process a roll of film. He taught me how to make a print in the garden shed.
And as we'll explain later on, we have gone really full circle back to the garden shed. Right?
We have, yeah.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
So you're taking pictures. What are you shooting?
Friends and family. When I was like 14, 15, I shot my mates who were in bands and that kind of thing. I tried to find like cool alleyways in my Wiltshire small hometown. Pretend I was shooting the Rolling Stones or something like that. I'd seen these images on album covers that I really liked. And so I tried to copy the composition and learn about the composition through that. And I was, just experimenting, and your friends are the best people to experiment with, aren't they?
Of course.
Yeah.
And what was the moment where you decided that you wanted to take this further and expand your education?
I think it was a gradual thing for me. So after I'd started enjoying photography and learning how to print, I studied A-level art, and there was a darkroom at school, but it had just been turned into a storage room. So I got in there and I cleared it all out and I made it into a fully functioning darkroom again.
That's cool.
And again, I just taught myself more, like practiced taking pictures, practiced being in the darkroom, practiced printing. And part of my A-level art project was some photography. And I think I knew then that I wanted to do photography, wanted to study photography, wanted to be a photographer, but I thought I'll make sure I'll do a general art foundation. So I wanted to try other things before I really narrowed down my path.
And I think that was quite a natural progression back then. We all seemed to have to do the foundation before we went to uni.
Yes. So I did the same.
But that just reaffirmed your love of photography.
It did, yeah. I tried lots of different things as you're guided through your foundation. You try so many different processes and work with different materials. And I just knew that I knew it was photography then. I knew going in, and that year there just really affirmed that I wanted to go somewhere where photography was taken really seriously, and I could be serious about my photography, and I'd be surrounded by other people who love photography as well.
So you expanded that to go to university, right?
Yes, yeah. So I went from there, from Bath, where I studied my art foundation, to Salisbury, where I studied for my degree.
Yeah. And yours, again, quite interesting. We've got these weird similarities.
Yeah.
My first camera was a Minolta camera. Your degree wasn't a photography degree. It was called professional communication.
It was,
and mine was visual communication.
Yeah.
So
very similar, but it was either you chose the photography path or the film and TV path. And after the first term, they were fairly separate. Yeah.
How did you find uni? How did you find that moment of studying, or now you're surrounded by other people?
I loved it. I loved it. Just being, you learn so much off your peers, and just being surrounded by people who are enthusiastic about photography, having the resources to be able to have a studio to shoot in. I'd never, I'd not.
What about the other students on your course? Did they have that similar, shall we call it, analog process of black and white printing?
Yes, yeah, we were before digital, so
before.
everyone was shooting film.
But was everyone processing like that?
Yes, yeah. We were totally encouraged to do that and print. So we learnt black and white printing, colour printing. Fantastic.
And you loved it, didn't you? Because you've already told me you had a bit of a love of science. So it all sits together, right?
Yeah, so for my A-levels, I studied chemistry and biology and arts. So it was a bit of a unusual combination, maybe.
Yeah,
but it was perfect. Yeah. And now I'm indulging my inner scientist and chemist and my outer artist. So
that's a good way to describe
it.
So what happens? So you go to uni, you're loving it, you're studying, and then just again, what natural progression? You're like, right, how do we turn this into a career?
Yeah, totally. I was like, I'm going to go to London and assist. That's it. No two ways about it.
You decided?
Already decided.
Was that scary?
Yes.
Why?
Because I was a little Emma from a tiny town in Wiltshire, and even Salisbury to me was massive. And then to move to London, that was huge. And then to start in an industry that I didn't really know much about. And I just had to get on the phone and call people. So I was just calling photographers saying, I love your work. I want to come and assist you. Can I come and meet you? I've just graduated from university. And so I took my folio that I made around with me, because everyone wanted to see that. I think people are just interested in seeing how much you care about your work and how you present it. It's not actually content of your work. And I just met loads of people, people who I worked with for years.
And what sort of stuff were you doing? What were you assisting in?
I started off working a lot in car photography.
Which again is this weird similarity. I was the same. I used to work in a car studio.
Yeah.
Flecking dust off the back ends of bumpers while photographers stared through binoculars.
Yeah. So I worked...
Why cars?
Because I wanted to be outside. So I worked with location photographers who were shooting car adverts outside in the landscape. And I was super shy. I didn't have the people skills that I do now. And I didn't want to put myself in a place where I would be uncomfortable talking with loads of people on a set. But there's tons of people on a car photography set.
Yeah.
And I loved it. Travelled a lot over Europe with a couple of photographers assisting on car shoots. But then I started working with portrait photographers.
Goes back to your photographing friends and Rolling Stones covers, right?
Yeah, totally. And then I worked with music photographers.
What was that like? Was that exciting?
I loved it. Yeah, it was totally where I felt at home. And there are 3 photographers in particular that, can I mention names?
Of course.
A big shout out to Paul Ryder, Spiros Politis and Dean Belcher. Without them, I wouldn't be the photographer I am now.
What did you find that you learned in those situations working with those guys that propelled you forward?
Well, as much as the photographic side, it's about being on set, like working with people that you're only going to meet for one day. You just got to get on with people. You become a team really quickly. You have to. And then, your musicians or your celebrities walk in the door and you just have to be able to strike up a conversation with them. It doesn't matter who they are. You can't be fazed by it. And I really enjoyed that, just meeting people and realizing everyone's just a normal person. Everyone's just a human being with a story. And
was there anyone that you were a little bit like, oh my goodness, that person?
Yeah, Richard Attenborough. And he was totally lovely. He's one of the nicest people I've ever met.
But Richard Attenborough, I'm glad he came across that. It'd be awful if he turned up on set and Richard Attenborough was an arsehole, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Could you imagine?
He was lovely. We went to his house.
Really?
To photograph him in his garden. He was an absolute gentleman. Yeah.
That's a lovely story, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyone else that you were kind of like, wow, or that you were like, I've got to meet that person?
There's been so many. I've worked with some just amazing music photographers and people like Basement Jacks at the height of their fame. And I worked with a photographer and we photographed behind the scenes at the Empire Awards for a few years. So got to meet Sigourney Weaver, Kate Blanchett, Judi Dench, Quentin Tarantino.
Oh, wow.
All these kind of people.
Great
Kevin
experiences.
Smith.
But like you say, it's that going from being that shy person the assisting, I think you described it as a learning curve to show you how good you could actually be with person. So it gets you out of that comfort zone.
It does.
Quickly.
It got me out of my shell, totally. And learning how to be a professional on set and how to be with people, when to say things, when not to say things. Yeah. And just believing that I belonged and feeling like I belonged there. I loved it.
So how did you make that transition from assisting to...
Oh, it was very slowly.
I think
very
for all
slowly.
of us. You have to develop a client list and people have to trust you, right?
Yeah, and a lot of it was word of mouth. And then when the photographers that I was assisting, maybe it was a job that was too small for them, so they would recommend me. And so there might already be clients that I knew, so that would help. Yeah, and it just grew slowly and organically. You know, I didn't have a big
moment
into the now I'm a photographer world. It was a real over several years. And I still work with a couple of my mates when they need an assistant. So just because I like being them, like I don't get to see them very often. We're both busy. So if someone's cool. I really enjoy it. So
can you tell us a little bit about the commercial work that you were shooting for yourself then?
I still shoot commercial work. Obviously, it's not all wet plates. It's all portrait photography. I work with charities, NGOs. I work a lot with artists, documenting like big installation art pieces and performances. I work with arts councils, commission me to photograph big events and performances. I work with the BMA, the Doctors Union. So it's all portraiture, or magazine, corporate, and
Well, we've all got to pay our bills somehow, Emma.
We have, and luckily I get to pay mine by taking photographs. So
Which
I feel
lovely,
like I'm really lucky and really privileged to be able to do that.
Do you think it's luck?
I know you have a thing about luck, don't you?
It's not that I have a thing about luck. I think that we pass things off quite casually as luck sometimes, but we're a product of the decisions we've made, the life choices, the environments we've grown up in, the positions you've put yourself in, like the assisting and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not... You've learned to be good with people.
Yeah. You
have to learn this trade. So
maybe luck is a little bit blasé, but, you know, I know that I've been in situations before. I worked with fashion photographers when I was assisting, and that wasn't really what I wanted to do, but I knew that I was in a place where loads of people would cut their arm off to be where I am. You know, we're on a fashion shoot in the middle of Cuba, photographing for this amazing magazine. That's not many people get to do this. It's just
quite a life, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Did you have to sacrifice anything when you were doing your assistant?
I don't know. I wouldn't even say that I had to sacrifice personal time, because I felt like weekends or something like that. Some people have a thing about weekends, but I felt because I'm self-employed, work is irregular. My weekends weren't precious. So I didn't feel like I was giving up. Maybe it was things like going out in the evening and meeting friends after work. That doesn't happen when you're on a shoot. You're on a shoot till it ends. You know, you can't book a ticket to go to the theatre or the cinema at 7 p.m. because you're not going to... The highlight is you're not going to make it. So maybe that's it. But again, I didn't feel like that's a sacrifice. I just lived the lifestyle that I really wanted to live. And for me, it's just about being a photographer and taking photographs,
making and creating.
Exactly, that's a good question. I haven't ever thought about that.
Well, I just wonder sometimes, because I look at exactly that. We came up through the similar route, the assisting, and until you've done it and been on set, you don't quite understand that it's not a 9 to 5 job. It's 6 in the morning till 12 o'clock at night. If the shot's not right, and if you imagine back in those days, it was film. We exposed something wrong, or something's not right on camera. We've got the test back. We've got to shoot it again. It's one of those strange. But that's why I love it, because our route is very similar into the industry. But what happens then? You've been working in the industry a while. You've developed your client list. You obviously got a passion, and you're feeling rewarded from photography. But you felt like you were lacking something a little bit, right?
I did. I felt like I'd got to a nice place. You know, I'm working, I'm earning my living through photography, I'm taking photographs, and people pay me for it. Looking great. But I just felt that I wasn't pushing the knowledge of my craft any further. I wasn't learning anything new about photography. I'm working as a photographer, I'm running a business, I'm getting new clients and, shooting.
If you're doing all that, why did you feel like you needed to progress or do something to learn more?
Yeah, I just felt like I loved photography so much, but it had become a bit of a job, maybe. And what I wanted was to reignite the passion that I always had for photography. And it's not like it had ever gone anywhere. I think I just got so caught up in living life.
Paying bills,
doing
the job,
running a business, that I'd not paid attention to the actual craft of photography. My love of photography needed feeding. Yeah, I needed to...
Well, presumably commercially as well now,
totally.
Shooting on digital and stuff like that. So,
and you're always delivering what the client wants. And that's not always 100% personally aligned with your own creativity. So you want to give and you need to give your clients what you want. But I just wanted to learn something more about photography. I just had the itch that I needed to learn more about my craft. So I did.
So tell us more about that, because this takes us to like 2017, sort of 9 years ago. This realization comes, you're not pushing yourself in your knowledge. So what did you do, Emma?
Well, I made a little promise to myself, or a little bargain with myself, that every year I would do something from then on to push my boundaries of my photographic knowledge and just learn something more about photography that was interesting to me at that moment. And I didn't have any pre-prepared list or anything, but things came up as they do. And so first of all, in 2017, I took some training with Photo Voice, who are a charity based in Brixton at Photo Fusion Gallery. And they train people in ethical storytelling, I would say, and working with communities to use photography as a storytelling method to talk to the wider community about any issues that might be happening for them. So it might be about women's safety in certain shanty towns where not everyone has a toilet, so the women have to go somewhere to go to the toilet, but that's dangerous at night and that kind of thing. And often it will be working with people who wouldn't naturally feel that they had a voice in politics or local governance. Yeah, they were able to present their views easier through sharing of photography and actually demonstrating it.
What did you learn working with those guys in terms of, as you say, visual storytelling that perhaps you didn't already know as a photographer that knows your craft very well?
I think I learnt how to teach and share photography without using the techniques. So I teach photography as a storytelling methodology, which isn't based in I don't teach anything about apertures, ISOs or anything like that. No technicality. It's all about using the camera to enable people to tell their own story. What I'm doing is giving them the visual literacy skills to understand what they're shooting and encouraging them to really think about how they take a picture, how high they are, whether they're stood up or out on the floor, and using techniques like framing techniques and visual techniques that enable them to share what they want to share in a clear visual way. Because photography transcends language. We can show someone a picture.
Picture 7,000 words.
Exactly. So I had been working since 2012 with a not-for-profit based in London called Olive Branch Arts. So they work with youth theatre programmes, drama and drama therapy. And they had been working in southwest Algeria at a group of refugee camps there. So there's refugees from Western Sahara in southwest Algeria, in the Hamada, which is a really harsh piece of desert in the far southwest near a town called Tindouf. And so I went there for a few years with them to document their work. So they work with young people who devise their own pieces of theatre, and then they tour it around the refugee camps. And then they were starting to tour in wider Algeria with their performances. And at one of those residencies, really, I guess, with Olive Branch Arts in the camps, one of the young people came up to me and said she wanted to shadow me. So there's a good education system in the camps, and then the young people go to university in like wider Algeria, or they go to Spain because Western Sahara was a former Spanish colony. And she had studied journalism and she had a particular interest in photography. So she said, next time you come in, can I shadow you? And I thought, oh, that's a great idea. And so I came home and I have another friend who's done the photo boys training. And I knew about it. I was like, that's what I need to do. Not only does she want to shadow me, what I really need to do is be able to give her a camera and help her with her photography skills.
Right.
So I ended up not just teaching her, but teaching a group of 12 young refugees. So we take out cameras for everybody. So we teach visual literacy skills. We go out with lots of sort of prompts. And so they devise in the end what they want to photograph. And so we help them create a photo story and a photo series of what it is about their life that they want to share, what they want the world to know about.
Was that daunting for you going out and then suddenly
Totally.
12 students?
There's 12 people plus translators in the room and all looking at me. Yes. So luckily I work with one of the co-founders of Olive Branch Arts, who's a drama therapist. So it was really great having someone who's very aware of people and how much they're engaging, their well-being. So she was very much keeping an eye on that. And I could just really concentrate on delivering the photography training. But yeah, I was terrified. Shall I tell you what I did to cope?
What
to
did
prepare?
you do?
I went to have some hypnotherapy.
Did you?
Yeah, before I went, because I didn't think I was worthy or had the confidence to stand up in front of a group of people and deliver them something that was worthwhile and could be helpful to them in their journey as artists.
Why did you not feel like you had the confidence in that? Bearing in mind you'd been a commercial photographer.
That's a good question. I've always had a fear of public speaking. That's why I'm behind the camera and not in front of it. So, yeah, I just didn't believe that I could do it without fumbling. I wanted to make sure I was clear. So really, I just wanted to work on my own, view of myself and imagine walking into that room as an amazing thing and not be scared of it. And it was an amazing thing.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah, it's the best thing that I do is go there and work with these young photographers and mentor them every year.
And this is a massive part of what you do, isn't it? This ethical story and giving back, feeling like you're helping people tell their story.
Yes, it's huge for me. It's, like I said, it's the best thing that I do. We were talking earlier on about legacy, weren't we?
Yep.
And I don't think about legacy, but I think this is what I would like to leave behind is just an amazing group of young people who love photography and who are inspired to carry on creating and sharing their story and knowing that people outside, that we can bring the story back home here, that people are listening to them.
And how many times have you been to Algeria then?
I've been going since 2012.
Wow.
I've probably been about 8 times in that. Yeah. And so that was the first thing that I decided to do in my expansion of photography. And the next one, I decided to take a wet plate workshop because I thought I didn't learn anything really about historical analog processes when I was at university. Just go and make some wet plates. I love the way they look. There's something about the quality of the images, which is really ethereal and otherworldly. Probably has something to do with the long exposure, but they're really magical.
Yeah.
And
so when did you start the wet plate stuff?
Yeah, so that was probably in 2018. And I saw someone else's work. You know what it's like. You look at something on Instagram and you like it. Then all of a sudden I'm seeing wet plate images everywhere.
Yeah.
So I had a one-to-one workshop with someone in London. And I just thought, I'll go along. I'll make a couple of plates. I'll learn about the process. And then I can just put that to the side. Tick box. I've learned something new about photography. Off I go back to normal life.
Yeah, commercial life.
Yeah. But I got completely hooked. On the bus on the way home. I was Googling where do I buy silver nitrate in the UK on my phone.
Because like you say, it is such a magical process.
It is, yeah.
And we'll go into some more of the technicalities of it in a bit. But you really did get the bug, didn't you? You instantly got yourself a 5.4 camera and started making your own wet plates.
So I'd already had the 5.4 camera. I've probably had that for about 18 years. And I bought it because I wanted to be a landscape photographer and not have to speak to any people, which didn't work out at all. But I hardly touched it. And I'd almost sold it several times. And now I use it more in the last 8 years than I've ever used it. I love it.
Yeah. And just the 5.4 camera alone, a lot of people who may not know what that is, it's a slower process. There's no autofocus.
No.
There's none of that.
It's like the simplest camera you can get. It's you've got a ground glass screen, you've got the bellows, and then you've got a lens at the front. So you're just projecting that lens onto the ground glass screen. That is it. You've got your aperture, your shutter speed, and your film speed, which with this is half an ASA. So,
which is technical stuff that people probably
don't know. Sorry. That's for photography geeks out there.
Photography people listening will understand what we mean by that. So there is a lot of technicality around that. But you started making your own plates. You're learning. You're just picking up manuals where you can go. You're finding YouTube videos, whatever technique you can find, right?
Totally, yeah. So I knew when I did the course, the one-day workshop, the woman who taught me recommended a couple of people, and then I got online. I started watching videos on YouTube, like how to mix your chemistry, how to pour a plate, just going over all the basics over and over again. So I got a couple of manuals that were amazing, and I just practiced. And fairly soon after I started, I got a commission to make a big project with wet plate, working alongside another artist.
What was that project?
It was working with an artist called Mary Branson, and she wanted me to take wet plate portraits of all of the volunteers at Leith Hill Place, which is a National Trust property in the Surrey Hills. So she had this concept for this big piece, and she wanted me to make the portraits. And so I did. I was like 8 months into my wet plate journey.
Wow.
I felt like I was flying by the seat of my pants.
But was that quite a buzz? Because obviously you'd been paid for your photography work before, but this was so new.
Yes, and then being paid for it as well. Yeah. It felt incredible.
Incredible.
Yeah, and then everybody loves having their picture taken with this process. So the people who were involved, who were sitting for the portraits, all really love it. It's got that magical bit at the end where you pour the fix on the plate and your picture pops out of the cloudiness.
Oh, it's unbelievable. It's so cool.
Yes. So it's really lovely making something that people are really engaged with.
But you still wanted to learn more, right?
Yes. I felt that I'd been teaching myself quite a lot by now, and that I knew that my techniques were rather bumpy in certain areas.
Bumpy, okay.
And that they really needed like underpinning with some good foundations and someone looking over my shoulder and saying, yes, no, do this, do that. So I applied for an Arts Council grant, and I received a DYCP, a Develop Your Creative Practice grant. And I went to New York for a month in 22, pretty much as soon as America opened its borders after COVID, and spent a month there traveling around upstate New York, studying with the most amazing wet plate teachers.
That sounds very cool.
It was heaven.
And there was one in particular, wasn't there? A guy called John Coffer.
Yes.
So he sounded like a very interesting character when we spoke. Can you tell us a little bit about him and his process?
So he lives off-grid as if it's the late 1800s in upstate New York. So he was a commercial photographer in Florida in the 80s. I think he sold everything, bought a horse and cart, and ended up being an itinerant wet plate photographer while he was studying the process, traveling around America for about 11 years. And then he bought this ranch where he is now based and teaches from it. And so when I went to study with him, I stayed in a teepee on his ranch. There's no running water, there's no electricity. But
didn't just make it feel a bit more authentic, though, with the techniques that you were going through. Do you feel like you are in the 1800s? Or...
Yeah, it was a lot of fun because it loosened up my finickiness. Can I make up that word? Is that okay?
Sounds like a good word to me.
Thank you very much. So you have to be very exacting and clean with this process, and it can be a harsh mistress if you don't treat it right. You need to take care of your chemistry and be on top of maintaining it. And just being there where you're making wet plates on a farm where there's
dust,
there's no running water, there's dust, there's little caterpillars falling out the trees onto your plates, there's a robin's nest over your shoulder in the plate drying rack. It's not the pristine environment that everyone imagines that you need for this process. And I found that liberating. I'd studied previously with the two photographers in Rochester itself, Mark and Franz Scully Osterman, who are process historians from the Eastman Museum, and they're incredibly incredible teachers, very exacting about everything. Their knowledge is just incredible. But then to go to this ranch where everything was much looser was like, oh, okay, I don't need to worry, because I felt like I had imposter syndrome about my darkroom at home, that I'm in a shed, that it's not like a really nice, proper professional environment.
But then seeing this guy doing it in a horse and cart on a ranch.
It made me let go of all that.
Yeah.
So I sort of came home totally empowered.
Yeah, I was going to ask, did you come back much more confident in your process and all that sort of stuff? You ironed out those bumps.
Ironed out the bumps, had them ironed out of me by the teachers there. And I felt much more confident, much more knowledgeable, and that I could cope with any issues when they came up. I could troubleshoot any problems that would happen, that I'd be able to work out what was going on in the process and fix it.
Hey, sorry for interrupting. This is just a quick reminder that if you're enjoying this episode, there are a couple of really easy ways that you can support the podcast. You can hit the support the show link in the show notes, or consider grabbing yourself something from the Creative Noahland shop on the website. And don't forget, community members get free shipping on all orders. So, before you buy anything, be sure to join. Thanks again for being part of the Creative Noahland community, and now, let's get back into it. I suppose we should say, I mean, I'm sat here with a fellow photographer, so you definitely know what wet plate photography is, and I know what wet plate. But can you put the process into some sort of layman's terms for people? I know that's a big ask, but if someone has no idea what wet plate photography is, can you sort of explain it?
So it's a photographic process from 1851. You make a plate. A plate is either a tin plate or a glass plate. You pour an emulsion on that plate, which becomes light sensitive after you've dipped it in a silver tank, and then you treat it like a normal piece of film. So once you put it in the back of the camera, you shoot it, you go back to the darkroom and you develop it straight away. If you've done black and white process, this will be very familiar to you, this wet plate process.
But the wet plate, you're on a bit of a time limit, aren't you?
Yes, hence the name wet plate.
It can't dry.
No, exactly. From the moment I take the sensitized plate, so basically the film that's ready to shoot, out of the silver box and load it into the plate holder, I've got 10 minutes to shoot the plate, get back to the darkroom and process it before the surface dries out. So, it adds a little frisson of excitement to the shoot.
As we said when we started, I've just been lucky enough to have my portrait taken, and I remember the buzz of getting your images back, or a bit of black and white printing, or it comes off the machine and you get to look at, to expose that horrendously, I need to go back and iron out my own bumps. So it was just a joy. I think we're all so used to digital photography now, me included. Every job I do is digital.
Yeah.
So going back to that analog process that has that, there's no hiding, there's no retouching.
Yeah.
It's science, isn't it? It's chemistry.
It is.
And you have to be exact. But that magic of that moment when you poured the dev over the plate and I saw myself come through, I was like, that's why we fell in love with photography.
Totally. I think I will never get bored of that. And that's why I love this process so much. If you get bored of seeing that image come up, then this isn't the process for you. Wet plate photographers will share that all the time. The picture coming up in the dev or clearing in the fix. It's magical.
It's magic. It is magic. And it goes back to that thing you said. It is, the picture comes out of the fog. It's exciting. It's magical. But you do have to surrender to the process, because
totally. And that's what I love about it. I love the ritual. It's a meditation, I think, for me. Like when I get in there and I'm just about to pour the plate, I take a breath and a moment and then I go. And sometimes now I've been doing it so much, it falls away and you just do. The process just happens and you're doing it. And it's not that it doesn't need presence of mind, but it's just such an ingrained ritual in your mind and in your body. You can just go. And that just feels really lovely to be in that place with this process where it feels, like I said earlier, it feels like home. It feels very natural for me now. Doesn't mean things don't go wrong. But I feel
sometimes
equipped to deal with them
But
now.
again, sometimes there's probably magic that you wish you could recreate those mistakes, but you're like, I don't know, you can't. It's impossible.
Yeah, exactly. So I do try and control the artifacts. That's what we call the mistakes. I'm really trying to welcome them back into the process now, because obviously at the beginning when I tried to learn, I wanted to make a perfect plate with no artifacts. I wanted to get the perfect everything just to come together, and it doesn't happen very often. Now I really want to embrace those things that might be considered faults. It's a sign of it being handmade. We don't have that with digital images. They're perfect from edge to edge.
Yeah.
But the fact that my fingerprint's on the corner of the plate, you can see that it's a handmade thing. Yeah. It's not just pixels and zeros and ones. It's a real thing.
And you describe the process as a dark mistress.
Yes. I've said that a couple of times, haven't I? Yeah, I do. Because
but I like it. I like the way you describe it.
I think it's because the process is exacting, and you need to understand your chemistry and all the ingredients of your chemistry and why they're there. And if things can go wrong, it's temperature sensitive, it's humidity sensitive. If it's a hot, dry day, it's going to happen fast.
Yeah.
It doesn't like dust. You might pour a beautifully clean plate, then a fly lands on it or something, Yeah. So I think it's about embracing that, I think. So,
but there are elements of it you can control. Things like you get slightly different tones depending on the fixer that you use.
Yes, exactly. Right? Yeah, so I control obviously the exposure, then the development in relation to the exposure, and then different fixers have different tones, and one's much cooler toned than another. So you can make all of these creative choices while you're making the plates. But I guess you do that when you're shooting digitally as well. About lighting and exposure, you can choose where,
composition and things like that. Yeah. But this is very much a different. Yeah. Anyone that looks at this style of photography would go, "Oh, was that shot in
in the 1800s?"
Exactly, because they look vintage, don't they?
They do.
They've got that element of.
And I think it's partly to do with the long exposure.
So you need to. 15 seconds. I had to sit still for 15 seconds.
I thought I'd give you the full experience.
It was amazing, but anyone that knows me goes, Matt sat still for 15 seconds.
You did. I did. Like, very well.
Well, I was determined not to ruin the process, Emma. You told me it was such a unique process, and I'm going to say it again. I absolutely loved it. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
Because not many people are going to have the honour of having their photograph taken like that.
No, and I love sharing it. And it is like a piece of theatre, really. The whole thing, isn't it?
I was going to say that. It is like performance art, which is interesting because you photograph a lot of performance art.
And I have taken this process out to the Regent Street Motor Show.
How does that work? How do you take this process? Bearing in mind, I've seen it and it's so controlled.
Yes.
How do you take that on location without all your...
Where there's hundreds of people, public walking past this exhibition of vintage cars, have assistants. So I had a darkroom set up in the street, so I left one assistant there, and then I would go out, set up my camera, leave another assistant with the camera while I go and make the plates, come back, and then literally we're in the middle of Regent Street holding people back. I'm counting down my exposure.
Wow.
People are photographing us while we're doing it because I've got that camera and I'm underneath dark cloths. People don't see that much anymore, so people are fascinated, and you end up becoming an object of fascination, which is lovely.
We said that, didn't we? Even like you say, most people don't photograph like that anymore, but it did. It took me back. You going under the dark cloth took me back to assisting, being in the dark room, smelling the chemicals. Yeah. It was such a nostalgic thing.
Yeah,
that most people, probably younger people, will never experience because they've never got in a dark room. But again, thank you so much, because it was just such a pleasure. And let's just tell it how it is. It's not easy for a photographer to be photographed, or probably for you as a photographer to photograph a photographer.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you. You made it easy.
Well, no, I was literally, it was one of those things where I was kind of like, well, Emma's directed me to do this, so I'll just do this, and I'll try my very best to stay still for 15 seconds. But honestly, I can't wait to share them, honestly. No. I think that they're beautiful. How much of your work is now wet plate?
I would say about a third of my work is probably wet plate at the moment. I would love it to be more.
And what are they commercial jobs? Are they back doing stuff with the NGOs, the charities, or is it a broad mix?
It's is a mixture. So I'm working with the wet plate. It's more arts funded projects. So I've just worked on a large Heritage Lottery funded project, something in collaboration with King's College, more Arts Council funded projects, the National Lottery project grants ones. And I have artist residencies in a couple of galleries, and I have had pop-up studios there so people can come along and have their portrait made. I taught, and people have private commissions. Yeah, it comes from all. I think the word is spreading since I've come back from America in this sort of area, because I work a lot with artists. People are coming to me, I've heard about you, I want this process for X, Y, and Z. It calls certain people for certain
it's so
things.
Unique. It's such a unique process.
Yeah.
So it lends itself to probably some of these artists that are going, I could just photograph it digitally, but actually I want to photograph this process in a much more interesting way.
Yes, yeah. So it's a real mix. And now I've worked with these people, then the network spreads further. People come and see the exhibitions at the end of these large projects, and people go, oh, I think you might be good for this project. Like, great.
So should we talk about that? So some of these paid entities, these commercial things, are still ended up as exhibitions.
Yes, so the Heritage Lottery funded projects, artist residency outcomes are ending up in, one of my pieces is just about to go up in Watts Gallery, joining their permanent collection after I had an artist residency there. So we've got another exhibition which is about to launch in September, which is going to be the beginning of a travelling exhibition as a result of this Heritage Lottery funded project.
And are these just doors that have opened as a result of you doing this?
Part of them are that, exactly, and part of them are part of the funded project, if that makes sense. So one of the outcomes of the project. So for this Heritage Lottery funded project, an exhibition and a small touring show is part of the outcome. So yeah.
Do you consider yourself an artist?
I don't know. If I was going to be an artist, I'm going to be a photographic artist. Can I have that?
Yeah, of course. Well, because I suppose we should say that's how we met Emma, isn't it?
It is.
We had work in the same gallery.
Yes.
You were part of the Juliet Margaret Cameron Awards in Barcelona, and I was part of a different awards thing, but the exhibition was running simultaneously. Yes. And I met you and your wonderful partner, Ed. We had a wonderful time an evening in Barcelona together. And for the last 2 years, I've been trying to get you on.
Yeah, and I've been avoiding you.
Get you on the podcast. But yeah, that was an interesting one, wasn't it? Because you were the winner of the Juliet Margaret Cameron Awards, which is, I suppose we should also say, Juliet Margaret Cameron used this wet plate technique, didn't she?
She did, yes, famously so, and was a pioneer of this technique.
So do you consider yourself an artist?
I feel like I probably should, but it feels a little bit, I don't know, I'm getting used to, it's like when I changed from assistant to photographer, like getting used to that change. It's like another part of me, I think, rather than a change. I'm not going to not be a photographer, but maybe I'm an artist as well as a photographer. I had a piece in the Royal Academy.
This is what I'm about to say. You've had multiple awards. You're part of the AOP Open. You're a finalist in that. You've had work selected for the Royal Academy show last year, 2025.
Yeah.
So really, on paper, you are an artist.
I know. So when I think about it, that sounds a person who's an artist.
But is that the universal problem? Saying you're an artist, even if you feel it and believe it, is actually quite a strange...
Yeah, and I think it's imposter syndrome, isn't it? It's like, I
should really call you on this because I do it on everyone else. It's not a syndrome.
Isn't it? What is it?
It's just human. It's just
not
human.
Just being human.
You haven't got a syndrome. Okay. It's not an illness. It's not a sickness. True. It's just something that every human goes through. And funny enough, and we speak about it on the podcast. A lot of the time you feel imposter syndrome when you're trying something new. So sometimes you should just try and reframe it and embrace it.
That's it. Like, just the fact that you read all of that stuff out about me, it's, okay. Yeah, it's just...
Is it different when someone tells it back to you?
I think it makes it clearer.
Does it make it easier to accept that you are an artist?
Yes, I think so, because if
what
that
is
was
that about us? Why do we have such an issue going, I'm an artist?
I don't know.
Because we've discussed it, and having that portrait done was interesting. Because I've just done a load of self-portraits of myself to try and in some way propel my art forward. I'm like, goes back to our degrees. It's a visual communication.
Yeah.
How do I communicate this idea of what I'm doing? I can't really put it into words.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm facing a lot of resistance from myself about putting myself out there as an artist.
Yeah, I think the same. Yeah, it's putting your head above the parapet, isn't it? And saying, this is what I do is scary.
It's vulnerable. It's
scary. You make
scary.
yourself vulnerable. Exactly. That's the perfect word.
But is that not where the best art comes from?
Totally. And it's where, this work that I'm doing at the moment, I'm sharing something vulnerable about myself. And I'm wary of that because it's something that you normally keep inside. And it feels like you're opening your heart and people can see it and they can damage it.
Yeah, very much so. I definitely feel like that.
But also, most people have been wonderful about the work. And,
it's most of the time, it's our own issues about it, isn't it? It's not anyone else's issues.
It is. Yeah.
We called ourselves an artist or whatever. No one else really cares.
No.
It's a strange one, isn't it?
It is. Maybe can I call myself a photographic artist?
I think
a photographer and artist, something like that.
I think you are all of those things. Then.
Thanks.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Shall we talk about taking this process further then? Because this leads us on to, yes, you've got your commercial career, which I'm sure people are like, why didn't you talk about that? And I'm like, well, you don't necessarily need to know about all the commercial jobs that pay the bills. This is the draw, Emma. The wet plate stuff is the draw, isn't it? And you're working on a project now in the Cairngorms, right?
I am, yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Where to start?
Well, shall we start with where the project's based? And because it's based on a book, isn't it?
It is. So it's based on a book called The Living Mountain by Nan Shepherd. And it's about her exploration of the Cairngorms when she was younger. So she lived in Aberdeen her whole life and spent her whole life walking in the Cairngorms. And she was fascinated with the small details, the meditative nature of walking, being in the mountains and following your senses. So the sounds that you heard, maybe the trickle of a stream or a bird or something, following the scent of the pollen from the heather or something like that, rather than setting out with a conquest of mountain in mind. So that really touched something in me, like looking for those small meditative details that found something in me that
hit you.
Yes, that touched a nerve or touched something in my heart. About the meditative practice of being in the mountains and noticing the small details that lots of people don't notice, that being inspired and feeling the beauty and the gratitude of being in those places without the need to conquer the mountain or have a destination that you must reach by the end of the day. So I went to the Cairngorms and I knew that I wanted to work from certain places that she mentions in the book. So I would go there and park up the car and walk. So I would follow a path down by the river or through the woods or something. And while we were walking, that's the place. That's what I need to photograph.
Just pure intuition.
Yes. Yeah. So just looking and paying attention and listening and being aware of all my senses, looking at the light, and just there would be somewhere along that journey that's like, that's where I need to make, that place, that's the special place, that's all that's calling me right now. That detail is just so beautiful. I'm going to take a picture of it. I need to try and capture the essence of the wild nature, the wild essential nature of the Cairngorms through this tiny detail.
That's interesting. Was that tricky for you to make that transition from, say, going from your commercial clients where you've got a brief, this is what we need to achieve, to then go, I'm just going to walk in the Cairngorms with my camera and, that stream's drawn me over there.
I think it's...
To go back to that intuitive nature that it's just like, no, instinct meant I'm going to take that picture.
Yes, I think it felt very indulgent to be making pictures for me. Purely for me, with no commercial end in mind, just for the love to make a body of work. I just wanted to work out in nature with this process.
And you said this was a meditative process.
Yeah.
But you say
the actual,
The actual
process
process of the wet plate is a meditative process. So you combine the two.
Yes. Yeah.
Can I just ask, what does that look like? I mean, I can't imagine the Cairngorms are the most easy place to navigate with a 5:4 camera and
No, and I took
wet
my
plate.
10:8 camera,
Oh,
so
you
to make it even harder.
Bigger than that.
Yeah, it meant all the equipment I needed fitted on a trolley and in a backpack, and I had my partner Ed with me assisting me. So thanks, Ed. Major props for all your help. So we were able to just wheel the equipment and then carry it on my back to the location. Or I would work out the back of the car if the place that I found was within 5 minutes walking distance.
Because you're on a time
I'm on
limit.
my time limits. Yeah, so if I can get to the destination, shoot the plate, and get back in 10 minutes, I would work out the car.
Did you ever find a place that you go, that is perfect? And then by the time you'd set up, all the light had changed and everything had changed, it's kind of all flat and horrible?
Yeah, I was really trying to get a picture of through the trees in one particular set of woodlands. And it's just the most beautiful light. And I had this picture in my mind. I was like, come on, Emma, come on. And this is when I was being fought by the process, by the light moving, and I was chasing, and I was getting really frustrated with it. I was like, had to have a word with myself. That's not the point of this project. You've got to just let go of that. If this picture's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. So just surrender to the process, take a breath. And so just very calmly, like, okay, I'm just going to pour a plate. We're going to go back to where I've left the camera, and I'm going to make a plate. And
whatever will be, will be.
Exactly. I'm not going to chase what I've got in my mind. I'm just going to surrender to the light, everything that's happening. And I came back with a great plate. It wasn't what I had in my mind, but it was, for me, it's about letting go of those preconceived ideas as well. That I would come back from the Cairngorms with a beautiful picture of the mountains.
Yeah, the vista.
Exactly,
the postcard vista.
Exactly. And
is that a project that's ongoing then?
Yeah, I definitely feel like it's unfinished business. So I'm going to go back this year and make some more plates.
What do you see the end goal of this? An exhibition, a book?
Yeah, so I'm seeing an exhibition.
And is this all self-funded?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is purely personal project.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a book, maybe a handmade book. And I think if all things come together, I'm probably working with some musicians who I've met a group who are also inspired by the same kind of nature writing as Nan Shepherd's. We're sort of growing this from this little seed of an idea about a performance where they're performing live improv music inspired by the same nature writing, and at the same time my pictures will be projected and worked into the performance.
Sounds very cool.
That's right. That's in the tiny beginnings of an idea. Yeah.
But this project has already been featured in magazines.
It has, yeah.
Do you want to talk a little, because this is quite a cool one, isn't it? The magazine that you're featured in alongside a few well-known
photographers. Yes. So I'm featured in Focus Quarterly, so issue number 4, alongside the great Alfred Stieglitz, and a feature about camera work magazine. Oh my goodness.
That's pretty amazing.
That is, to see my work featured alongside that is just incredible. What an honour.
Yeah.
So
did it feel like an honour?
Yeah. And I was like, I feel like a little bit of me's arrived somewhere.
But again, this is down to maybe some legacy.
It is. And this is about being an artist as well.
Yeah.
Seeing my work here, the way I'm talking about it, I feel like it's an evolution from where I was before. This is the next step. And it tells something about my soul, I think, which is really vulnerable.
Okay.
And it's quite hard to be...
Say more about that. What do you mean?
I just think the way that I talk about it, the way we've written about it for the magazine, it really gets into the essence of what the work is about, how I feel about the work. And yeah, they asked about vulnerability as well, which is interesting. Yeah, it's just an honour to be in it, to be featured in it, to be asked to be part of it, and to be talking about my work as an artist rather than as a photographer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a name for the project in the Cairngorm?
Yes, I've called it the Umpire. So
Why?
it's a little quote from the Nan Shepherd book where she talks about when she was young and she was out walking with one of her childhood friends and her friend's father, and they'd wandered off somewhere, and her friend's father called them back. Come back to the past, come back to the past. And her friend turned round to her and said, I like the unpath the best.
I like that.
Yeah, me too.
That's cool.
I like the unpath.
And there's something, the road less travelled is something.
Yes, and I think,
which again,
for
the photography technique less travelled.
Yes, yeah. I think as artists, we're often on the unpath. Yeah.
Well,
I called myself an artist then.
well done,
Yeah.
Emma. Well done. I love that.
Yeah, I think we take unconventional routes and unconventional paths. And
Definitely.
that is part of the fun, exploring life that way, life's journey.
Leading a life.
Yeah.
But I think that's why we chose this path, right? So
Yeah.
with the problems that do come alongside
Yes,
that.
yeah, maybe sometimes to our own detriment, but
Of course,
it's,
financial insecurities, imposterism, all of those things, they affect us. And it's something that manifests, and it's something that I hear in a lot of the podcasts that we record.
Yeah. I'm glad it's not just me then.
Oh, it's definitely not. It's definitely not just you,
Yeah.
Emma. But moving forward, we spoke about a project that you'd like to do in the UK involving your wet plate as well, that has the crossover between the stuff that we spoke about earlier, giving back and sharing the love of photography that you have, the helping of the marginalised communities. And am I right in thinking that you'd like to do a wet plate portrait project of some of the refugees from the Western Sahara that are living in the UK?
Absolutely.
So combining your wet plate love and your love of giving back and this charitable work that you do, the ethical storytelling.
Yeah, so my dream would be to take the wet plate process to the refugee camps in southwest
Algeria. Do you think that might
happen
happen in the future?
In my dreams, I'm going to keep dreaming that dream, but I think...
Is that just a logistical nightmare?
Logistical and technical nightmare. So maybe I could find a way to buy a refrigerated van and get it to the camps. I wouldn't be able to take it there. Someone else would have to drive it there. But then managing this process in that heat and dust would be a nightmare.
But also amazing artifacts.
All the sand on the plates.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that I'm going to keep that in my mind and not completely dismiss it. But I then had to rein myself in. It's like, how can I make this work? There is a Sahrawi refugee community here in the UK. It's pretty small. I know quite a lot of them. So it would be wonderful to make a body of work with them, for them, and as a way to raise awareness about what's happening in Western Sahara by making some storytelling portraits with the people that are here now, because I can do that. They're accessible to me. I can transport my darkroom to wherever they are.
It's a much easier thing here.
Logistically, it's
Western
totally
Sahara.
achievable. So, that's been in my mind for a few years, and now I feel like I'm closer to being able to make that happen.
But this is all part of that thing about you giving back, isn't it? You've got this real...
Yes, I guess so. I mean, I feel that it's also very much for me, and maybe that's a bit selfish to do this, but...
There's no selfless act. We discussed this in lots of podcasts, and it's all right for you to feel good if you're doing something good, Emma. I promise you.
Thank you. Yeah,
it's
good to hear. Yeah. Yes, I feel that there is a really wonderful body of work to be made there, co-created with my Sahrawi friends that are in the UK and the Sahrawi friends that I'm yet to meet, where we can make a series of portraits and work with alongside some other creatives to create a body of work and an amazing exhibition and maybe book. But it also needs to be something where there's outreach and like an outreach within the communities that we work with,
where they can see benefit from it as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how do I bring all of those things together and make that happen? That will be an Arts Council funded project, I would imagine. Yeah.
But amazing.
Yeah, definitely.
And this is, and going back to that, because it is I know we've talked a lot about the wet plate, but this is a big, important part for you, isn't it? It's like you described it as you can't holiday in someone else's misery.
I did say that, yes.
And the whole thing about raising awareness, because the last few years, haven't Olive Branch teamed up with Amnesty?
Yes, we have. So we've been really fortunate to be able to exhibit at various Amnesty International groups and events around the UK, and we've toured the exhibition of the works that the young people I've been mentoring have created in the Sahara, as well as some of my own work. And we give talks about Western Sahara, about the political situation, about what life is like on the camps for our young people, so people can understand.
And as part of that tour, you had an exhibition at the House of Parliament.
We did, yes. So
was your work in that as well?
Yeah, there are a few pieces of mine. I tried to make it mostly the work of our young people. So yes, that was organised by another group that is a Western Sahara solidarity group called Western Sahara UK. And so we exhibited in Parliament for about a week or 10 days in October last year, before I last went to the camp. So the exhibition was still up when I went to the camps last year, and we were able to arrive and say, your work is at the moment up in an exhibition in the UK Parliament. So that was amazing to be able to share that with them.
What was the response from some of the people when you told them that?
They got very excited about that, because we're not just talking the talk, we're walking the walk. We're sharing their work, and we're in Parliament, and we're not only are we exhibiting in Parliament, we're working with the other solidarity groups to lobby Parliament to affect change. And so we're really trying to make a difference there and back in the camps, so people feel that's really worthwhile, because that's how we can start to bring the awareness about Western Sahara up the political.
And is that what you mean by you can't dine out on someone else's misery, in the sense that I can imagine that maybe some people would go there, do the photo op, and come back and never be seen again, whereas like you say, you have to, with everything, you have to see the impact for the people.
Yeah, so I think, I really at one point wanted to be a documentary photographer. I would have loved that, because I just love meeting people, and I think I'm really interested
Which is a far cry from the
quiet Emma
who wanted to hide on a car shoot in the middle of the landscape.
Totally. I'm really fascinated and interested in what happens afterwards, after a war, after some big event that's been of world
natural disaster.
Yeah, it's been reported around the world. What happens 5 years later? We're not talking about that event anymore, but there's people still living with the aftermath of that. And I think there's a lot. Obviously, our news cycle is fast. Although it's 24 hours, it's actually short. The stories reported are really quite short. So these kind of things, I feel, aren't always reported on afterwards, because it's not like sharp end of news. But there's people living in those situations, and we need to check in on them and see how people are living now, and what kind of people still need support, or what kind of support they need, and make sure it's not just us going in.
Do you just feel like it's a responsibility if you're going in and taking photographs?
Oh, God, yes, definitely. Yeah, for me, so although I wanted to be a documentary photographer, I knew that I wasn't cut out for it, because I couldn't go in and go and visit and then never go back. Because as soon as I went to the refugee camps in Algeria, there was one point in that trip, and I was taking some pictures, I'm meant to be here. This is what I'm meant to be doing. We stay with a family in the refugee camps. We don't stay outside and go in every day. They feel like family. I've got family there now. Yeah. They feel like my brothers and sisters. So when you have that connection, you can't just go in and never go back. So I feel that I can create something far more worthwhile and help train these young photographers and enable them to tell the stories that they want to tell by repeatedly going back. As long as I'm useful to them, I'll keep going back. If they don't want me to go back, then if they tell me I'm not helping anymore, then I won't go.
Yeah.
But if I've got things that I can teach them, some techniques, some knowledge, some understanding, some self-belief, that's probably even more important than the photography, is they believe in themselves and their capabilities.
God, I think that's important for all of us.
Yes, yeah. And in the camps, no one's ever refused when I've asked to take their picture. But what people say is, share our story back home, we've been forgotten. So that's how they feel. They are called the forgotten people. So I do feel an obligation to come back and share the pictures, but it's not a burden to do that. And the story is important, it's very valuable, and to be able to be given the permission to take someone's portrait and share their story is it's an honour, and I don't take that lightly. So that's why I feel like I'm so dedicated to continuing to advocate here and support the surrounding community here by doing what I do back in the UK. So it doesn't, my solidarity doesn't end when I'm there. It's an ongoing thing over the years.
And are you planning on going back anytime soon?
Yes, yeah, we'll be going back probably in spring next year. Yeah.
Okay, I think we've spoken about quite a lot of stuff there, Emma.
Yeah.
People will look at your stuff, and I think most people will be interested in the wet plate stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we've gone into that, because it's so cool. It's such a lovely process. I know we keep talking about it, but it is magical. And in the world where we're consumed by so many images, slowing down, that meditation, allowing yourself to just let the process happen.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
It
and,
is.
And as I say, I've got an amazing portrait that I'm so pleased with, and got to experience the whole thing, which was just bloody wonderful. So thank you again.
That's
Emma.
great.
Really
Thank you very
appreciate it.
much.
So, Emma, we do have a closing tradition on the Creative Noeland podcast where we ask our guests to give us a quote or something along those lines that resonates with you, but also future guests, someone in your world, your network that you think might be an interesting guest to come on the podcast. So, over to you.
There are several people I think would be great for you to meet, and who
More the merrier.
Yep. So I will give you a few names. I name checked some of the photographers earlier on that I assisted, who were all amazing, and I think would be great. So the person I'm going to just tell you now is an artist called Mary Branson. So she's an installation artist, and she's got the first piece of contemporary art in Parliament's permanent art collection.
Wow.
So she's made a light piece called New Dawn, which celebrates women's suffrage movements, which is a permanent fixture in Westminster Hall.
Wow, she sounds very cool.
She is very cool. So I think maybe you should drop her a line.
Great. Well, if we can sort it out, that would be great.
Lovely. So,
and what about a quote or something along those lines that resonates with you?
So I've got a poem that I keep stuck to the fridge.
Perfect.
You might know it. It's called The Laughing Heart.
I know. This is very funny. It's actually my favourite poem.
Excellent.
So I will very much try my best not to read along with you. It's brilliant. People, listen to this. It's by Charles Bukowski.
Okay. Your life is your life. Don't let it be clubbed into dank submission. Be on the watch. There are ways out. There is light somewhere. It may not be much light, but it beats the darkness. Be on the watch. The gods will offer you chances. Know them. Take them. You can't beat death, but you can beat death in life sometimes. And the more often you learn to do it, the more light there will be. Your life is your life. Know it while you have it. You are marvellous. The gods wait to delight in you.
It's so good. It's so good. And it's the epitome of what we stand for on Creative Noeland. You've just got to live your life, take the risk, take the gambles.
Absolutely. I keep this stuck to the fridge.
Brilliant.
So I read it every day.
It's a beautiful poem. And as I say, it's actually my favourite poem. Well, so the synergies keep going. We've got the Minolta camera, the assisting career, and now we've got the same favourite poem. I think it's all synergy, Emma. It's all come together.
Great.
Anything else you think that we should have spoken about?
Probably after you've gone, then maybe I'll
think
the
hindsight. We should have said that, but that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But for now, Emma, I just want to say, again, people bored me saying, thank you so much for taking my photograph.
It's been a pleasure.
Was absolutely amazing experience. And thank you so much for being on the Creative Noeland podcast. I hope that people take away a lot from your story. It's brilliant. And I'm glad that I finally managed to pin you down after 2 years of wanting to get you on. Emma, thank you so much.
Great.
Really
thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to the Creative Noeland podcast. If you found anything in this episode useful or inspiring, please consider subscribing or sharing it with a friend. You can also help the podcast by clicking the support the show link in the show notes, or by grabbing yourself something from the Creative Noeland shop. And here's the bonus. When you join the community through our website, you'll get a special discount code that gives you free shipping on all orders. So, before you buy anything, be sure to join the community. Every bit of support helps us keep sharing these inspiring stories. So, thanks again for listening, and until next time, explore, inspire, and create.
Better to have a short life that is full of what you like doing than a long life spent in a miserable way. And so, therefore, it's so important to consider this question: what do I desire?